Everybody loves Will Howard. And honestly, how could you not? The guy has that rare mix of charisma and grit that makes it hard to root against him. From his calm command of the huddle to the way he carried himself during Ohio State's run to the college football championship, he earned respect. Not just as a quarterback, but as a leader. You saw it. Everyone saw it. He was the kind of player you could picture under the bright lights on Sunday, rallying a team late in the fourth quarter. That's why what happened next feels like such a gut punch. During one of those routine training camp practices at Chuck Noll Field, it was just a basic quarterback-center exchange. Nothing exotic, nothing wild. Zach Frazier snaps the ball. Howard collects it, starts to roll to his right, and boom, something's off. But he doesn't panic. He plants, fires a laser to Jaylen Warren, right on the numbers, and then starts shaking his throwing hand. You could see it from the sidelines. It wasn't dramatic at first, just a quick flick of the wrist like he thought he'd jammed a finger or caught a stinger. But within minutes, he was off the field. And just like that, he was out of camp. A broken finger. One simple injury. And everything changed. Now, a busted finger isn't a career ender. Not even close. And to be fair, Howard's already back to throwing again. That's not the issue here. The issue is timing. Because the Steelers were planning something very specific for Howard in this developmental year. This was supposed to be a quiet season for him. A chance to absorb the playbook, get reps behind the scenes, and learn how to be a pro. Not necessarily to push for the starting job. Not yet, but to grow within the system. That plan? It's now up in the air. Word started to spread yesterday from sources close to the team's South Side facility that Howard is heading to injured reserve. Most likely today. And while that doesn't sound like a big deal on the surface, the implications underneath are massive. Because depending on how the Steelers designate him, it could either be a short-term setback or a season-long pause. If they place him on IR with the designation to return, he could be back in 4 weeks. But if they don't, if it's a standard IR, his rookie campaign is already over. That's where the ripple effect kicks in. Let's assume they do bring him back mid-season. That means Howard becomes the third quarterback on the depth chart, which sounds fine until you realize someone else has to go. Right now, that someone would probably be Skylar Thompson. And cutting a guy who's been active, been in the room, been part of the daily grind, that's no small decision, especially for a quarterback you've already decided won't be part of this year's active rotation. And here's the kicker. Even if Howard does return, what exactly is he returning to? He's not going to leapfrog anyone in the pecking order. At best, he'll be working as a scout team quarterback. He'll be mimicking opposing signal callers in practice, throwing balls to simulate Lamar Jackson or Patrick Mahomes, or whoever the next opponent happens to be. Is that valuable work? Sure. Is it glamorous? Not even close. Is it better than sitting in the classroom watching film while your teammates grind it out on the field? Absolutely. But it's also not development in the way fans often imagine. You also have to consider the mental toll. This isn't just about healing a finger. It's about a young quarterback losing his first true chance to integrate into the NFL environment. You only get one rookie year, and Howard's is being interrupted before it even had a chance to start. That stings, especially for a player who wasn't drafted until the 6th round, despite having a ceiling that some scouts thought was much higher. Let's not forget, Art Rooney himself went on record after the draft saying this season was always going to be about learning for Howard. There was never an expectation that he'd compete for snaps in 2025. But that doesn't mean the reps he could have gotten this year didn't matter. Because they absolutely did. Now zoom out. Let's fast forward to next spring. Howard's finger is healed. He's back in OTAs. He's slinging the ball with authority. But here's the cold truth. The quarterback room might look completely different by then. There's a very real chance that the Steelers draft another quarterback. And not just any quarterback. We're talking about a first-round pick. Maybe even a top 10 pick if things break a certain way. And if that happens, guess who's going to steal all the spotlight? It won't be the guy who missed his rookie season with a broken finger. It'll be the new face. The one shaking hands on draft night. The one giving hugs to the commissioner on that big stage. The one being introduced as Pittsburgh's next hope. Picture it. The North Shore lit up, the black and gold faithful screaming, cameras flashing. And right in the middle of it, this shiny new quarterback holding up a jersey with his name on the back. And while that moment's happening, where's Will Howard in all of it? Probably in the building, maybe watching from the film room, maybe rehabbing. But no one's thinking about him. Not in that moment. Now in the future, just arrived in a brand new suit and tie. And that, right there, is what makes this injury hurt more than anything else. It's not about pain. It's about timing. It's about opportunity lost. It's about how fast the league moves and how easily you can get forgotten. Because the NFL doesn't slow down, and it doesn't wait. Even for guys with great potential and great personalities. Even for guys who said all the right things, impressed in interviews, studied the film, and bought into the process. It's brutal, but it's real. Howard may still very well have a future in Pittsburgh. He might become a reliable backup. He might even evolve into a starter one day if the stars align. But in a league driven by narratives, the story of his rookie year is now written in invisible ink. And come draft night, that blank space will be filled by somebody else. All of that from a single, mistimed snap. And then there's the discussion about what happens next with the depth chart. Because let's say the Steelers don't designate Howard to return. That means he's out for the season, and the team gets to keep Skylar Thompson as its third quarterback. That makes sense on the surface. You keep a healthy guy who can take practice reps, who knows the system, who's physically present. But then what happens to Howard's development? You can't practice when you're on IR. You're limited in meetings. You're just floating. And that's not where you want your rookie quarterback to be, especially one you had enough interest in a draft, even if it was late. Now let's say they do activate him. Maybe it's week 7. Maybe it's week 9. Either way, they bring him back. Now you've got a QB3 who's not going to play, who's just there for scout team reps, and you've had to jettison someone else to make that space. All of that for a guy who, again, you're not planning to use this year. It creates a strange tension inside the locker room because players feel that stuff. They know who's grinding and who's developing. They know who's ready and who's being stashed. It's not something you can hide. There's a phrase you hear all the time in the NFL, next man up. It sounds simple, harsh even, but it's the ultimate reality check in professional football. One player goes down, another steps in. No hesitation, no pity, no pause. The machine keeps moving. And while fans might mourn a setback or debate a depth chart, inside the walls of a facility like the Steelers on the South Side, there's no space for sentimentality, which is what makes Will Howard's current situation so fascinating. Because the longer he stays on the shelf, the more the NFL does what it always does. It moves on without you. The Steelers aren't a team that drags its feet when it comes to making decisions at quarterback. They've seen too much history, lived through too many legends, and felt the sting of not being prepared for the future. After Ben Roethlisberger, it became painfully obvious how vital it is to have a clear succession plan. So even if they took Howard in the 6th round and framed the pick as a development project, they did it with a vision. They saw something. His frame, his poise, his ability to deliver the ball under pressure. All of it checked the right boxes. He wasn't some throwaway pick. He was insurance. An experiment. A flicker of upside that could become something more. But now that flicker is stuck in a holding pattern, and the league doesn't wait for flickers. When a player like Howard is sidelined this early, it creates a very specific kind of silence around him. Coaches can't talk about him because there's nothing new to say. Teammates don't see him as often, don't interact with him on the field, don't get those shared reps that build trust. Reporters stop asking questions about him because he's not in the daily rotation. And fans, well, they move on to the next story. A training camp star, a preseason breakout, a possible trade. Whatever it is, it's louder than the guy with a busted finger. And that silence? It's dangerous. Not just for a player's confidence, but for his relevance. Let's rewind a bit to how quickly things shifted. Howard had a good start at camp. Not spectacular, but good. Confident throws. Smart reads. He looked like someone who understood he wasn't there to steal a job in August, but also wasn't going to blend into the background. He was in that sweet spot where a young quarterback learns while still pushing the tempo and the reps he gets. It's exactly where a guy like him should be. But then snap, pain, exit. A single play. A single moment. And everything changed. The staff had no choice. They moved forward. More reps for the other quarterbacks. More chances for someone like Skylar Thompson, who's been quietly solid. Not flashy, not electric, but reliable. And in the NFL, sometimes reliable beats potential, especially when that potential is standing on the sidelines in a hoodie, watching someone else throw the ball he was supposed to be throwing. That's the brutal dynamic Howard has walked into. Because whether or not he ever plays a snap in Pittsburgh, the people in that building are always evaluating. Always. Every day is a test, and he's currently not even in the classroom. And while he rehabs, the rest of the league keeps churning. College seasons begin. Mock drafts heat up. Names rise and fall. Quarterbacks become household names overnight. In the front office, even one as traditional as Pittsburgh's, starts building next year's board. They already know they'll be scouting QBs heavily. Everyone knows it. And no matter how much they like Howard, they're not going to stop themselves from taking someone they see as a true long-term starter because of a flyer they grabbed in the 6th round the year before. So what does that mean for Howard? It means that when he returns, he's not just fighting for position. He's fighting to stay in the conversation. And that's a much steeper hill. Here's the reality that rarely gets said out loud. Every quarterback room in the NFL has a hierarchy that goes way beyond the depth chart. There's the starter, the face of the franchise, or at least the guy holding the reins. There's the backup, usually a veteran, sometimes a steady presence meant to mentor or stabilize. And then there's the third guy, the developmental project, the wild card. That third guy, he only gets so many chances to prove he's more than that. Howard was just getting his when it was ripped away. That puts him in a delicate spot. He can't afford to be passive when he returns, but he also can't play reckless. He needs to be sharp, efficient, show growth, show command, not just to justify a spot on the roster, but to remind the Steelers and maybe the rest of the league that he still matters. Because if he fades from their plans, there are 31 other teams watching. Maybe not actively scouting, but definitely monitoring. That's how careers get revived or redirected. But it starts with visibility, and right now, Howard is operating in the shadows. It's also worth noting what happens when a new draft pick eventually arrives, because again, that feels inevitable. That player will walk into the building with a completely different level of expectation. He'll be the center of attention. He'll get the interviews, the reps, the primetime focus. The team will bend the development plan around him, which pushes someone like Howard even further down the line. He becomes the other guy, the one who was here before, the one they kind of liked but who never really got a shot. It's not fair, but it's real. Now, could Howard flip the script? Sure, there's always that possibility. Maybe the finger heals perfectly. Maybe he attacks his rehab, dives into film, becomes an expert in the system. Maybe he comes back during the season and impresses enough in practice that coaches start to rethink things. Maybe injuries change the depth chart. Maybe he catches fire in next year's OTAs and preseason. There's always a maybe, but maybes don't build careers. Consistency does. Opportunity does. Timing does. And right now, all of those are working against him. You look around the league and see other young quarterbacks getting chances, some drafted early, some taken late, some undrafted altogether. But they're on the field, they're getting reps, making mistakes, growing in real time. Howard, by contrast, is stuck in a kind of football limbo. Too new to be established, too sidelined to develop, too forgotten to be prioritized. That's the worst place a young quarterback can be. But before we dive in, don't forget to subscribe to Steelers Nation Central and hit the like button on this video. Your support helps us keep bringing you the latest updates on the Pittsburgh Steelers. And don't forget to share your thoughts on the news in the comments below. The Pittsburgh Steelers have reportedly pulled off a move that is sending shockwaves through the NFL, as whispers around the league suggest that the team has finalized a deal with none other than Aaron Donald. While official confirmations remain scarce, sources close to the organization hint at a signing that could redefine the Steelers' defensive identity for years to come. Aaron Donald, widely regarded as one of the most dominant defensive players of his generation, is rumored to have been attracted by the franchise's storied history and the promise of a roster that can finally provide the kind of support he has long sought. Fans, analysts, and rival executives alike are abuzz with speculation, imagining the kind of havoc he could wreak on opposing quarterbacks, linebackers, and offensive lines. The very notion of Donald lining up in Heinz Field conjures images of relentless pressure, bone-crushing tackles, and a defense that becomes virtually unbreakable. While contractual details remain shrouded in mystery, insiders hint at a multi-year agreement designed to keep the superstar at the heart of Pittsburgh's defensive strategy, combining financial incentives with performance bonuses aimed at rewarding impact on the field. The Steelers' front office appears confident that this signing could be the catalyst for a new era, one that pairs a dominant interior lineman with a historically disciplined secondary to form a nightmare scenario for any opponent daring enough to enter their territory. Speculation continues to grow as the media attempts to piece together the implications, with fans eagerly imagining a defensive line capable of turning every game into a showcase of raw power and relentless aggression, a scenario that could easily make the Steelers the most feared team in the league. The potential ripple effects extend beyond the field, influencing draft strategies, trade talks, and even coaching decisions as the organization appears poised to build an entire defensive philosophy around one of the most formidable talents in recent football history. Observers point out that this move could redefine positional expectations across the NFL, with younger players studying Donald's techniques and schemes in hopes of replicating his dominance, while rival general managers reconsider their roster compositions to counter a Pittsburgh squad suddenly armed with near-unparalleled interior strength. The atmosphere surrounding the team has become electric, with speculation spilling into social media, radio shows, and sports talk programs, all fueled by the tantalizing possibility that the Steelers' defense is about to enter a new, fearsome era. Even the casual fan cannot help but consider the dramatic shift this acquisition represents. Imagining offenses that once prided themselves on running or passing effectively now confronting a wall of sheer athletic excellence in every down. Analysts debate endlessly about how Donald's presence will influence game planning, with defensive coordinators theorizing intricate schemes designed to maximize his impact, while complementary players adjust their roles to create a synchronized, suffocating unit. As the rumor mill churns, the story of Pittsburgh's potential defensive juggernaut takes on a life of its own, fueling conversations in locker rooms, boardrooms, and living rooms across the country. In this environment of speculation and excitement, it becomes clear that the mere suggestion of Aaron Donald in black and gold has already altered perceptions of the Steelers, elevating expectations and creating an almost tangible sense of anticipation for the upcoming season. While no official statement has fully materialized, the intensity of the discussions swirling around this acquisition underscores the profound impact one player can have on the collective imagination of a football-obsessed nation. Every angle, every potential matchup, and every hypothetical scenario is being dissected, providing endless fodder for debate as fans dream of the defensive nightmare that may soon manifest at Heinz Field. The rumors surrounding Aaron Donald's possible arrival in Pittsburgh have ignited an unprecedented level of excitement among Steelers supporters, with conversations spanning from casual fan groups to sophisticated sports analytics forums, each dissecting potential outcomes and projecting statistical dominances. Insiders suggest that the deal, if fully executed, could mark a seismic shift in the league's defensive landscape, with Pittsburgh suddenly possessing a talent capable of singularly altering the dynamics of every opposing offensive game plan. Analysts speculate that Donald's presence could create a domino effect across the roster, compelling the team to adjust defensive schemes, redistribute responsibilities among linebackers and safeties, and potentially elevate younger, less experienced players into roles that demand exceptional performance. The fan base is reportedly in a state of frenzy, with social media platforms flooded by animated debates, highlight reels, and mock projections envisioning a Steelers defense capable of suffocating even the league's most prolific quarterbacks. Even rival teams are said to be reassessing their strategies, with offensive coordinators hypothetically constructing game plans around avoiding a confrontation with the interior of Pittsburgh's line, acknowledging the sheer physical and tactical threat Donald represents. Discussions surrounding contract structures, salary cap implications, and performance bonuses swirl endlessly, with some experts hinting at creative financial arrangements designed to reward game-changing impact rather than conventional metrics, reflecting a nuanced understanding of Donald's value beyond standard statistics. While the front office remains tight-lipped, the very presence of such speculation indicates an environment where expectations are heightened to almost mythic proportions, with every press report or unofficial leak amplified into further rumor, further excitement, and further anticipation of a defensive metamorphosis. Commentators speculate on the interplay between Donald and current defensive stars, imagining a synergistic collaboration that would allow Pittsburgh to field a unit that is both versatile and terrifying, capable of executing complex blitzes and stifling coverage schemes with unprecedented precision. Betting lines, fantasy football forums, and even casual pub debates are reportedly being influenced by the rumor, with the notion of Donald joining the Steelers reshaping perceptions of team strengths and postseason potential. The psychological impact alone, observers argue, could alter the mentality of opposing offenses, creating hesitation, errors, and strategic overcompensation simply because of the looming threat posed by one unparalleled defensive presence. Coaches and analysts dissect film of Donald's past performances obsessively, theorizing on how his tendencies could be leveraged in concert with Pittsburgh's existing personnel, envisioning combinations that maximize pressure, minimize exposure, and redefine the concept of defensive dominance. Social media chatter continues to expand into a self-reinforcing cycle, with each rumor fueling excitement, each prediction amplifying speculation, and each theoretical scenario further entrenching the narrative that the Steelers may be on the verge of a defensive revolution. Inside the Steelers organization, the alleged pursuit and acquisition of Aaron Donald has reportedly created an atmosphere of cautious optimism mixed with strategic urgency, as coaching staff, scouts, and management are all said to be reevaluating existing defensive blueprints in anticipation of integrating a generational talent into the fold. Sources claim that the defensive coordinator has been secretly exploring adjustments that would allow Donald to operate with maximum freedom, creating mismatches, exploiting weaknesses, and leveraging his unique ability to collapse pockets almost at will. Meanwhile, rumors suggest that veteran players are excited by the prospect of lining up alongside one of the league's most feared defensive linemen, believing that his presence could elevate everyone's performance and inspire a culture of dominance that permeates practice, film study, and game day execution. Analysts speculate on the impact Donald could have on Pittsburgh's broader team identity, noting that a defensive powerhouse often becomes a psychological weapon, influencing not just opponents but the entire fan experience, energizing crowds, and intimidating visiting teams. Betting markets and sports commentators have allegedly begun recalibrating their forecasts, projecting higher win probabilities, improved defensive rankings, and increased playoff potential based solely on the hypothetical addition of Donald. Rumors further suggest that team executives are quietly reassessing draft priorities and free agent strategies, considering how the acquisition of such a transformative talent might allow them to invest in complementary positions, shore up depth, or take calculated risks elsewhere, ultimately aiming to create a balanced yet formidable squad. Fans are reportedly poring over mock formations, highlight reels, and statistical projections, theorizing endlessly about the ways Donald could exploit current NFL offenses and contribute to turnovers, sacks, and game-changing plays. The notion of a Steel Curtain 2.0 has begun circulating in whispers, a tantalizing image conjuring Pittsburgh's historic defensive legacy, while simultaneously suggesting a new level of dominance poised to unsettle opponents across the league. Even media outlets known for measured reporting are reportedly seizing on every possible clue, analyzing cryptic social media posts, insider quotes, and transaction rumors to piece together the potential reality of this blockbuster move. The cumulative effect of these whispers is an atmosphere thick with anticipation, speculation, and almost palpable excitement, as the Steelers appear poised to redefine the defensive narrative in a way few teams have managed in decades. Meanwhile, rival executives, aware of the potential shift in power, are allegedly holding emergency strategy meetings, recalibrating offensive line configurations, quarterback protections, and play-calling approaches to mitigate the potential havoc caused by a player of Donald's caliber. Social media amplifies this effect, with highlight compilations, analytical breakdowns, and heated debates further feeding the speculative frenzy, ensuring that the rumor continues to dominate headlines and water-cooler conversations alike. Even casual observers are reportedly caught up in the excitement, imagining a defensive line that could turn games into showcases of dominance, pressure, and unrelenting intensity, elevating the Steelers' identity and reigniting dreams of championship glory. In essence, the swirling rumors surrounding Donald's arrival have taken on a life of their own, merging hope, fear, and strategy into a narrative that has captivated fans, analysts, and rivals, all eager to witness the potential transformation of Pittsburgh's defense. The broader NFL community has allegedly begun to respond to the rumor of Aaron Donald joining the Steelers with a mixture of awe, strategic recalculations, and widespread debate, as analysts, coaches, and media personalities dissect the potential ramifications for the league at large, pondering how one player could shift not only team fortunes but the competitive landscape of entire divisions. Discussions reportedly center on how Donald's presence could force offenses to adjust their schemes fundamentally, reallocating blockers, redesigning pass protections, and even reconsidering draft choices to counter a defensive line suddenly imbued with unprecedented talent. Sports talk programs, podcasts, and fan forums are said to be overflowing with speculation, projecting scenarios in which Donald's dominance translates into game-changing turnovers, disrupted timing for elite quarterbacks, and psychological pressure that amplifies every misstep by opposing units. Rumors suggest that coaches across the league are conducting detailed film studies of Donald's prior seasons, theorizing ways to neutralize his impact while also acknowledging the near impossibility of fully mitigating his disruptive capabilities. Meanwhile, betting odds and fantasy league projections are reportedly being adjusted in response to the news, with defensive stats for Pittsburgh suddenly viewed through an entirely new lens, and predictions for win totals, playoff seeding, and Super Bowl contenders shifting dramatically. Analysts speculate that a single signing of this magnitude could create a ripple effect across the market, influencing trades, free agent acquisitions, and even contractual negotiations league-wide, as teams scramble to protect themselves against a potential juggernaut. Social media chatter allegedly accelerates the narrative, with viral clips, highlight reels, and hypothetical simulations amplifying the excitement and embedding the rumor deeper into public consciousness. Rival players are said to be contemplating the challenges of facing Donald week after week, visualizing defensive strategies that attempt to isolate him or limit his opportunities, while acknowledging the inevitability of his impact on every snap. Sports writers reportedly frame the discussion in terms of historical significance, comparing the potential Pittsburgh defense to legendary units of the past and projecting a new era of dominance that could redefine positional expectations for interior defensive linemen. The speculative frenzy reportedly extends to merchandising, fan engagement, and ticket sales, with the mere possibility of Donald in a Steelers uniform generating renewed enthusiasm for the franchise. Even casual observers allegedly find themselves captivated, imagining how one player could transform both the tactical and emotional landscape of a team, turning every game into a potential showcase of unrelenting defensive power. Analysts emphasize the cultural and psychological implications of such a move, noting that dominance on the field can translate to intimidation off it, influencing not only games but rivalries, fan behaviors, and media narratives across the league. In this climate of rumor and anticipation, the potential arrival of Aaron Donald has become more than a transaction. It is a catalyst for speculation, excitement, and transformative possibilities that captivate the imagination of the entire football community. That's it for this update. If you enjoyed the video and want to keep receiving exclusive news about the Pittsburgh Steelers, make sure to subscribe to Steelers Nation Central and give this video a like. We always look forward to hearing your comments and opinions. See you in the next video.